So a few years ago, I'll say about 5 or 6 years ago, I used to struggle with depression, crippling depression, and suicidal thoughts a lot. To the point where, for a very long time, I would say 10, 15 years, I just didn't want to be alive, and I could honestly say that I was like hanging on by a thread. But in this video, I just wanted to tell you one story that kind of just stuck with me. And, during that time of my depression, I was in and out of psych wards, in and out of rehabs, because I suffered with a lot of, drug addiction. And during that time, I overdosed a lot. There was a period of 6 months where I overdosed 4 or 5 times within a short amount of time. And I look back now and I realize that that was just the side effect of my suicidal thoughts and me really being really not wanting to be alive. But there was this one time after one of my overdoses where, for those of you that don't know, when you overdose and they bring you back, they bring you through a series of questions, and one of the questions is, do you want to be alive, or do you suffer from any suicidal thoughts? And at that time, I kind of was just so blatantly, brutally honest. I had nothing to hide, I just barely survived death. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to be alive. So there's a protocol they have to take you through, and they bring you into a hospital, and they'll have these nurses stay around you, and you usually go into what we know as a psych ward for either a week or a few days until they feel like you're in a better headspace. So I went through that protocol, and I was in the hospital bed, and I was designated a nurse to watch over me and to just keep tabs on me. And it was a dude, and he was a super cool dude. But, at that time, I kind of was like, I believe nobody in the world could give me any advice or say anything to me that would convince me otherwise, or to convince me to want to stay alive. You know what I'm saying? I was so set in my ways. I'm like, nobody in the world understands me. Nobody's going to want to keep me, nobody's going to say anything that's going to work. And I remember this shit vividly, bro. The guy was just kind of asking me what I was into, and just giving me asking me personal questions like, what are you into, bro? Like, what do you like in life? And at that time, and I still do, I'm a big anime nerd. As you probably can see, I have a berserk tattoo on my forehead. But I told him I liked anime, and, surprisingly, he was a fan of anime too. So we just started going on this conversation about our favorite animes and our favorite mangas. And, I told him, he asked me, he's like, do you want to be alive? And I said no. And, he kind of switched the subject, and we started talking about animes. And he asked me what anime I was currently watching during that time. And at that time, I was watching My Hero Academia. And this is, I believe, when it was on the first or second season. So it was still fresh and new and shit. And he said something that was so simple, but it kind of blew my mind, and I almost didn't know how to respond. And to this day, I always think about that shit. And I feel like if anybody out there who's struggling with suicidal thoughts or depression, this is for you. If it's just one person out there, this is for you. He said, you're watching My Hero Academia, right? I'm like, yeah. And he said, have you seen the newest episode? I was like, yeah, I watched it. He's like, do you know when the next episode comes out? And at that time, I think the episode was a week away. And he said, maybe you should just stay alive long enough to watch the next episode. And I'm getting emotional right now thinking about it, but I literally didn't know how to answer. And I was convinced. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should stay alive to watch the next episode. Whether it wasn't the answer to my solution, it wasn't It wasn't something that solved my life, but it was something so simple, yet so profound, that it was something that I could cling on to and want to stay alive just that much longer. You know, and I think for anybody out there who's suffering from suicidal thoughts and who's convinced that life is not worth living, I challenge you and I implore you to think about something way more simple. Sometimes we overcomplicate what we think the answer to our problems are. You know, for me, I thought it was going to be this hidden gem that was going to be in a cave somewhere on a hidden island that I was going to find one day after searching for years. That was going to be the answer to my problems. But sometimes the answer is so simple. Sometimes the answer to your problem is just right in front of your face. And sometimes, just sometimes, an anime. Sometimes just a cartoon. A funny show. A video game. Can be the very thing that just you can cling on to, that can make you want to just stay alive just that much longer. And if you're a fan of anime, you know, and you're suicidal right now, I just think about the next episode, the next season. Like, just stay alive a little bit longer just to watch that episode. Just watch how the season ends. Watch how the show ends. Watch how the next episode unravels. And that alone can be a motivator to want to stay alive, because, you know, we may not have the family, we may not have the friends, we may not have the past or the future to look towards and to hold on to. But sometimes an anime, sometimes a manga can be enough to help us want to stay alive just that much longer. If anybody out there that's suffering with suicidal thoughts, that are suffering from depression, I love you, and you're not alone. You really aren't. You truly are not alone. And I hope that, you know, you find the thing inside of you or the thing outside of yourself to cling on to just stay alive that much longer, because life is so beautiful, and it's worth staying alive for.